In the dark depths of an abandoned building, a group of soldiers begin searching every corner for something. When that isn't enough, they use their scanners to ensure they don't overlook any details. Suddenly, a swift silhouette appears behind them. They shout, "There it is!" They get on guard and aim their weapons at the creature, which turns out to be a young boy. The frightened, scarred child runs away from the soldiers, but they manage to capture him. Some time passes before the child opens his eyes again. He is now lying in a comfortable bed in a room where bright sunlight overwhelms him. He has lived his entire life under an abandoned building, so he is unable to comprehend the flat floor, clean clothes, and delicious food delivered on time in this child protection zone. Everything is too new for him, so he spends his time sitting on a hill. One day, other children approach him and offer to play with him. He becomes tense like a cat, scaring them away. Finally, a butterfly lands in his hair, calming him down. In the distance, two women watch him. The red-headed woman asks if the boy can speak. The other woman replies that he cannot. She explains that the rescue team recently found him, so they believe he grew up with animals. That is why he cannot communicate yet. The redhead believes he is literally Mowgli, which confuses the other girl because he is a character from a story from before the arrival. But the boy runs inside the building with the other children when he sees one of them receive a letter. He doesn't know what the letter is, so a freckled girl explains that it was sent by a sponsor who sometimes sends gifts. As always, the boy says nothing, but the girl takes him with her and explains that sponsors are adults who take care of the children. Most of them are good, although some are bad. She tells him little by little about the other children's godparents who have given them toys and clothes and even talked to them. It sounds like a dream, but the girl insists she doesn't need a godparent because her mother promised to come get her after 100 nights. As the boy watches her in confusion, she assures him that 100 nights will pass in the blink of an eye and that she hopes they will come soon. In fact, when he looks up at the sky and blinks, he feels as if the stars are passing quickly. The next day, the teacher tells them that aliens came to Earth from far away to befriend humans. However, at recess, a boy with glasses insists this is a lie and pulls out a book he stole from the principal's office. He begins to read, "A long time ago, aliens came to Earth and caused the world to descend into chaos. Humanity decided to fight back with everything it had, including nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough. According to the book, the alien leader devoured the nuclear bomb as if it were candy. This left the humans with no choice but to surrender." Days later, the teachers took attendance and referred to the boy as Mori. They handed him a letter that had come directly for him and pointed out that it seemed he now had a godfather. The problem is that the freckled girl overhears this and is so surprised that she drops her things on the floor and begins to cry, completely devastated. Although they had only known each other for a short time, the two had become best friends. Mori looked for her until he found her crying under a table. When she insists that he leave, he becomes despondent, not knowing what to do. After a while, he brings her a half-eaten cookie, a couple of leaves, and a twig. These items become her most precious possessions, and she realizes that he is trying to cheer her up. She confesses that more than 100 nights have passed and her mother still hasn't come. She must have told him that number because she thought he couldn't count that high. In short, her mother will never come, and she will be completely alone from now on. The curious thing is that without saying much, Mori leans against her back to let her know he won't abandon her. Jokingly, the freckled girl asks if she can eat his cookie. The little boy's expression says it all. They spend the whole afternoon sharing it. Then, she offers to read him the letter. Surprisingly, it says nothing more than hello. The freckled girl thinks it doesn't make sense, of course, and turns the envelope over. She reveals that it contains a beautiful blue flower, which immediately catches her attention. She spends the whole night sniffing it and marveling at a scent she has never experienced before. Interestingly, as the days go by, Mori begins to receive incredible gifts that amaze the children and spark the freckled girl's curiosity. The gifts are accompanied by letters with simple, meaningless phrases such as, "pretty circle." Everyone wonders who her benefactor is, theorizing that it must be a very rich person. One person even suggests that people tend to be kind when they feel sorry for others. In any case, Mori is only interested in the crayons and tries to eat them. When they explain that they are for drawing, her head almost explodes. Afterwards, the director asks all the children to help him with the dirty laundry, and they happily agree as if it were a game. The only one not so convinced is the freckled girl. Even Mori finds it funny when foam starts coming out of the water. He goes crazy, and the girl asks him to be careful. Then, they see a figure approaching in the distance. They shout, "Rowena." The little girl's eyes light up with joy and she runs into her mother's arms. The reunion is so emotional that Mori is speechless. Later that day, Rowena has packed her bags and is about to say goodbye. She asks Mori to take care of himself and to chew his food well before swallowing. She also gives him a bag and a pair of boots so that he will never have to go barefoot again. Mori can't quite process the situation, but it's clear that she's going to miss him. She hugs him and tells him she hopes he gets everything he wants. The next day, Rowena leaves with her mother, and everyone bids her a cheerful farewell, except Mori, who feels strange and returns unconsciously to the same hill. His friend's absence is impossible to forget, yet he doesn't feel particularly lonely. He clings to the gifts from his mysterious godfather, the cape, warm as the sunrise, the fun toys, and the letters, which, although he can't read them, give off that delicious flower scent he loves. Gradually, Mori remembers his friend's words and Rawana's reunion with her mother. He wonders if his godfather could be his mother. That's when he starts thinking that way. That same night, he packs all his things in the bag Rawana gave him. He says goodbye to the orphanage from a distance and begins walking away, step by step, tracing his own path into the unknown on his way to see his mother. After walking a long way, Mori wakes up in what looks like a barn, but is actually a train that he snuck onto to get as far away from the orphanage as possible, and as close as he can get to his goal. Upon reaching a vast desert, he gets off, politely says goodbye to the train, and begins walking. A strange noise catches his attention. Turning around, he sees a group of bandits approaching at full speed. He starts running as fast as he can, but they easily surround him because the protagonist is so slow. A mysterious red-skinned figure observes the scene from a distance. The bandits are surprised when they get off their motorcycles and see that Mori is human. However, when they see him bristle, one of them asks the others if they are sure and if he could be worth some money. Finally, one of the bandits nervously suggests they eat Mori, insisting he's so small no one would notice his absence. Before he can act, his boss, an alien twice his size, stops him and asks what he's doing. The bandit apologizes, but his boss acknowledges that Mori could be a good snack. He seems to consider the idea of eating Mori when suddenly, one of the bandits' heads explodes, and the red-skinned guy from before attacks them. The bandits recognize him as Ryder and fire everything they have at him, but they are surprised to find that he can dodge every blow with absurd agility. Seeing that a direct confrontation is inevitable, the boss prepares to fight. Although Ryder throws himself at the boss, causing a huge collision, he escapes unscathed because he raises a protective barrier just in time. The problem is that this won't be enough. Ryder also emerges unscathed, and before they can react, fires a powerful laser beam that kills each of the bandits in seconds. When everything calms down, Ryder says they shouldn't have come to cause trouble in his territory. He turns his gaze to the protagonist, who is standing guard. The alien asks, "What the hell is that supposed to be?" Adorably, Mori begins to grow like a cat. Ryder analyzes his emotions with a device and determines that Mori is afraid. The device also reveals that Mori is a human child. Ryder smiles and acts as friendly as possible to reassure Mori and explains that he is safe and that the little creature next to him is his friend Aya. The best part is that Ryder offers to take Mori home, assuming he is lost. This makes the little boy's eyes light up, and he agrees to follow Ryder with confidence. Unfortunately, Ryder's attitude is nothing more than a carrot. He believes that although leaving humans alone has been an unspoken rule for a long time, eating them is not technically illegal. Despite being very small, someone will surely pay a lot of money for him, either to eat him as a snack or to use him as a toy. The interesting part comes when Ryder notices his clothes. Out of curiosity, he lifts his cape and notices sends chills down his spine. He decides that the best thing to do is leave him lying there. Insisting he's busy, Ryder gets on his motorcycle, says goodbye, and speeds off, thinking he almost got into big trouble since the cape had a distinctive mark that made it very important. Aya calls him a chicken. Besides telling her to shut up, Ryder mentions that he is thirsty. A small hand hands him a bottle of water. The alien thanks him until he realizes he should be alone on the motorcycle. When he turns around, he sees the protagonist, who has somehow managed to climb on and cling to him. Ryder tries to get him off, but they hit a rock, have an accident, and lose consciousness. He doesn't wake up until late at night, covered with the protagonist's cards, toys, and belongings. Ryder doesn't understand what's going on when Mori suddenly appears and almost scares him to death. Aya explains that the little boy put all those things on Ryder to keep him warm, in case his body temperature dropped too low. The device warns the protagonist that he is severely dehydrated, prompting him to run at full speed to find a bottle of water. Unfortunately, he stumbles over the same rock and ends up throwing the bottle on top of himself. In an adorable way, Mori starts rummaging through his things looking for something to dry him off with. At that moment, Ryder sees the seal on his cards. It features the same symbol he saw before, the Fa clan logo. The Fa clan's leader is one of the Seven Fingers. This being's interior contains the entire universe. Only he and those he has given express authorization can use his emblem. Anyone who threatens these people is signing their own death warrant, so doing anything to the dwarf is dangerous. However, Ryder begins formulating another kind of plan. He observes the clues he has. A human with no skills in need of help, objects marked with that symbol, and affectionate letters written on paper of such high quality that it could cover an entire month's worth of food. He wonders if he could receive a great reward for returning the little one. The next day, they set off on foot, and Ryder explains to Mori that no one knows this part of the world like he does. He adds that Mori is a great person and is willing to do him this favor as long as Mori remembers who helped him in these difficult times. The problem is that Mori blatantly ignores him. When Ryder approaches to ask Mori to pay attention, Ryder's heart nearly stops when he sees Mori eating a beetle. Ryder takes the beetle out of Mori's mouth and gives him a tremendous lecture on why he shouldn't eat that kind of thing. He explains that all blue or purple creatures can be extremely toxic, so it's best to stay away and not eat anything that looks suspicious. Ryder believes this warning will be enough, but the next day, Mori finds new and creative ways to put himself in danger danger as they continue on their way. The protagonist even falls into quicksand with his ridiculously adorable face, and, of course, he gets upset every time Ryder scolds him for being a walking death trap. At night, Ryder wonders what he is doing with his life. Then, he notices Mori focused on his own business and asks him what he is drawing. Mori gets excited and tries to explain but fails. At least the alien manages to read his name, so he starts calling him Mori. When Ryder asks about the weird black thing in Mori's drawings, he realizes that the little boy has been drawing him. Ryder is alarmed at first by how ugly it is but stares at the paper for a long time because it's the first time in his life that someone has bothered to draw him. Ryder realizes that he is happy, but being a true sunder, he tells Aya that he doesn't know what she's talking about. Together, they begin to help Mori improve his drawings. The next day, they reach a large hill. They see that they only have to go a little farther to reach their destination. However, the little boy has already run off in the opposite direction. He encounters a super cute lizard. The protagonist touches its hand, and they begin to play. The lizard's mother sees the protagonist as a threat, touches him, and his whole body bursts into flames. In a split second, Mori is completely consumed by the flames, and Ryder panics. He shoots at the creatures as he runs toward Mori with the intention of saving him. However, when Ryder reaches out his hand, the flames grow so large that it's impossible to get Mori out, and Ryder has no choice but to watch in despair as only ashes remain where Mori once stood. Moments later, however, a red cape emerges from the flames. Before everyone's eyes, it slowly extinguishes the fire, and Mori returns as if by magic. The strong blaze disappears, leaving only the adorable little boy sitting quietly on the ground. Ryder and the mother are speechless. The baby lizard applauds such a spectacle. Desperate, the alien asks if Mori is okay. Mori nods. He admits he almost had a heart attack and turns his rage against the creatures. He points his weapon at them, ready to eliminate them. Aya asks her to calm down. The lizard mother tries to explain herself, but, of course, they don't speak the same language. Despite their inability to understand each other, Ryder asks the lizard mother to stop playing the victim. He also has a young child to protect, and she almost killed his child. The argument continues until Aya warns them that something is approaching from beneath the surface. By the time they pay attention to her, it's too late. They are overwhelmed by an even larger lizard. Apparently, this is the true leader of the pack, and everyone thinks she must be protecting Mori. They prepare to fight, but the giant creature does not attack. Instead, she scolds her children for being so rude and forces them to apologize. Scared to death but trying to appear tough, Ryder tells them he'll let them go this time. They say goodbye and leave. Before leaving, the baby lizard approaches the protagonist and gives him a precious stone to add to his collection. In response, Mori gives the baby lizard a feather. They play for a while longer before saying goodbye. Seeing that Mori is a little nervous, Ryder lets him know that he is only alive thanks to the cape, which probably possesses ultra-powerful magic capable of protecting him from all harm and regulating his body temperature. In short, whoever gave it to him loves him very much, and he should thank them. This excites Mori so much that he starts running around in circles. That night, Ryder can't stop thinking about how cute Mori is. He asks Aya to tell him everything she knows about humans. He learns that, unlike aliens, humans reproduce, meaning Mori must have a mother. They tell us that a long time ago, the Master of Earth left the planet to explore space. When he returned, he found many new life forms, including humans who were more violent and ambitious than the others. He gradually discovered that humans believed everything belonged to them, from the grass beneath their feet to other humans. However, their population soon began to decline and disappear. Given the way things are today, Ryder thinks that humans don't care much about the smallest members of their species. Almost instinctively, Ryder turns to Mori, takes his hand, and looks at him with an affection that surprises even him. In another place, a creature assures another that biosensors are scattered throughout the forest surrounding the protection center, perhaps rendering them ineffective thanks to the cloak's powers. He tells the other not to worry because he is determined to find the little one no matter what. Next, we see Mori lying on a wide hill. He gets up, confused and somewhat frightened, realizing that he is completely alone. Still, he is dazzled by the beauty of the landscape. Suddenly, he opens his eyes and realizes it was all a dream. Ryder tells him that he woke up just in time because they have finally arrived in the village. They begin walking through the lively streets, which represent a new world that Mori has never seen before. Suddenly, someone screams, startling all three of them. It turns out to be a group of alien women approaching and marveling at how cute, adorable, and small Ryder is. Mori gets nervous, of course, and Ryder automatically goes on the defensive, warning them that he is very expensive merchandise none of them could afford. His words confuse the protagonist greatly, but they continue on to a tavern where they meet a blonde guy with horns named Valentine. He seems to run the place and makes jokes about how only stupid people eat humans these days. Ryder shows him the seal on the letters and asks how to find those people. Valentine is immediately surprised and begins to whisper. He insists that he has only seen the emblem once in his life, but says he will probably be able to locate a representative in the city. That's when things get complicated. Ryder gets scared and mentions that the Arbiter lives there. Valentine has nothing more to say, however, and begins to appreciate the protagonist's unique traits until Ryder asks him for supplies. They negotiate the price while Mori plays with Aya. Once the final price is set, Ryder rummages through his things to pay. Aya suggests selling some of the protagonist's possessions, but he says they could be killed for that. Then, Ryder notices the lizard's precious stone and asks Valentine how much it is worth. Valentine explains that it is a gem from Tom's, but when he throws it on the counter, it breaks into pieces. The protagonist almost had a heart attack when he saw how they ruined his treasure. However, Valentine asked him to calm down and watch, because the gem would be as good as new in a couple of seconds. It has the ability to reassemble itself. However, the gem is still worthless. Before continuing the negotiation, Ryder passes it to Mori, unaware that it has started rolling around the tavern. An innocent little boy runs off after it. When he catches up with it, he encounters a terrifying-looking creature who tells him he is adorable upon seeing him. Terrified, the protagonist starts running back to Ryder. The creature grabs him by his cloak, pulls him toward it, and puts him inside its bag, which acts as a kind of black hole. Thus, Mori falls into a deep darkness where, no matter how much he screams or cries, no one can hear him. Meanwhile, Ryder has a bad feeling, turns around, and realizes that the little boy is nowhere to be found. The worst part is that the rest of the tavern is completely calm as if nothing had happened. When Ryder starts shouting Mori's name, no one reacts except someone who complains when the man who kidnapped Mori bumps into him as he tries to leave. Ryder makes eye contact with the man in those last moments and gets a bad feeling, so he runs after him and asks him to stop. The man ignores him and begins to slip away into the crowd. When Ryder finally gets close enough to almost grab his cape, the man jumps off a cliff. Aya spots a small human being trapped in his pocket, making it clear that the man is trying to kidnap Mori. Keeping that in mind, they split up in an attempt to intercept him. However, the guy is incredibly elusive and the town's layout doesn't help. So, Aya decides to use technology similar to what we saw at the beginning. They scan all the streets, track his movements in real time, and calculate 14 possible routes to catch him. They narrow down the options little by little and guide Ryder along the most suitable route to intercept him. They then begin a brutal chase, even destroying a sand sculpture that a young artist spent 6 months creating. Ultimately, Ryder refuses to lose Mori without a fight. The kidnapper feels increasingly pressured and begins to shake as if he were inside a washing machine. After a while, Aya takes Ryder to a specific location and tells him he'll encounter the target in a few seconds. Ryder replies it must be a joke since reaching the target means jumping a deadly distance. Nevertheless, when Aya shouts, "No!" Ryder jumps without hesitation, surprising the kidnapper who stands still, thinking he's crazy and will die in the process. Surprisingly, just as he is about to hit the ground, Ryder is caught by his motorcycle, which is being controlled by Aya. He is not only saved but also face to face with the kidnapper. The kidnapper brazenly asks Ryder who he is and why he is looking for him. Ryder calls out to the protagonist, asking if he can hear him and to make any movement if so. At that moment, the protagonist starts screaming and Aya confirms that is Mori by scanning the voice. Ryder then asks her to return Mori, knowing she has him in her pocket at that very moment. Nevertheless, the man pretends to be confused and has the nerve to claim that the child is his, which causes the protagonist's fear levels to rise, along with Ryder's desperation. Ultimately, he pulls out his gun and threatens to kill him if he doesn't return the child. However, the kidnapper refuses, insisting that he finds the child adorable and that he is now his. Worst of all, the kidnapper recognizes Ryder and says his reputation precedes him. He says Ryder is an illegally created, ignorant, simple-minded, and marginalized creature. He asks how someone as dangerous as Ryder could raise a human being and assures him that he can love the child much better. Not only that, but he also insists that Ryder only wants him on a whim. In other words, they are the same. Fortunately, Ryder does not allow himself to be provoked and suggests Mori decide who to stay with. However, the kidnapper says that won't be necessary because if he fires the gun in the village, the alarms will sound, and he'll be hunted down like a criminal. This makes him feel confident, but Ryder becomes serious and points out that he does not care. Meanwhile, Mori spends the whole time screaming and calling for help. He experiences levels of fear unlike anything he has ever felt before and feels desperate at the thought that there is no way to escape. Everything changes, though, when he hears a familiar voice coming from his stuffed animal, the one his mother had given him, saying, "Don't forget to go to the bathroom before bed." It doesn't seem like a big revelation, but something clicks inside Mori. Returning to the kidnapper, Mori tries to offer Ryder a deal. One of them will keep the head and the other will keep the body. Ryder ignores the idea, thinking he has enough battery power in his weapon to blow his head off. However, he lacks the courage to do so because he doesn't want Mori to get hurt. Ultimately, he decides the best course of action is to find a way to get out of there. The kidnapper complains that Ryder is ignoring him until he notices a strange liquid slowly coming out of Ryder. Startled, he almost falls back up into his pocket, revealing a pantsless Mori, completely focused on urinating. The little boy seizes the opportunity to escape and begins insulting and threatening to kill the kidnapper until Ryder shoots, instantly blowing off one of his arms. Desperate, the kidnapper tries to get his arm back. At that moment, Ryder puts the gun to his head and asks him to listen carefully. If you touch this child with your filthy hands again, you'll lose much more than just a limb. Suddenly, the town alarms sound, and they know it's time to leave. They get on the motorcycle, activate a camouflage that makes them invisible, adjust the protractor, and leave. At first, they are confused, but then they laugh hysterically at how things have turned out. Aya insists it was a creative idea, and Ryder congratulates him. When Mori squeezes his stuffed animal, it says, "I'm very proud of you," which makes his cheeks flush and fills him with happiness at what he has accomplished. The protagonist then climbs onto Ryder and asks Aya to get them out of there quickly and head for the Cradle of Wheels. They arrive in a more mountainous area where the hill of the protagonist's dreams is no longer lonely. It stands tall with a beautiful view and the best company. From there, they begin exploring new and impressive parts of the world, from magical-looking forests and abandoned ruins to swamps that look like something out of a horror movie. On one occasion, they enter a cave, and when Ryder turns on a flashlight, the protagonist becomes so stressed that he scratches Ryder. Aya doesn't hesitate to point out that the little boy seems afraid of concentrated light sources. Some days they lie on the beach for hours. Other days, they are attacked by mutant bats. One morning, Ryder falls asleep and wakes up with his face covered in graffiti. The most impressive thing happens at midnight while they are driving across a vast plain. Amid the northern lights, they encounter an entire pod of whales flying through the air. The little boy is so excited that Aya activates autopilot while Ryder picks up Mori and lifts him up. This creates a magical moment that becomes a miracle when the protagonist touches the tip of a fin, his eyes shining as if he were reaching the sky itself. That night, Mori dreams of his mother cradling him and whispering, "Pretty circle." But the next day, Aya wakes up curled up in Ryder's lap. Ryder complains about the turbulence. She tells him that he can drive if he wants, and they start arguing until they reach the foot of an imposing mountain range. Ryder explains that it would be best to walk from that point on so as not to risk attracting the attention of the wrong people. However, he tells Mori that he is about to discover something incredible about the human body, and he wraps Mori up so tightly that he looks like a ball. Aya doubts the poor guy will be able to walk. The real problem begins when Aya stares at the horizon and sees something moving toward them at 491 kilometers per hour. Ryder knows that something moving that fast can't be good. Although he had his doubts at first, he soon feels a chill that paralyzes him on the spot, followed by an uneasy feeling. He decides to return to the motorcycle immediately. Unfortunately, Aya announces that they have 2 minutes and 45 seconds before contact is made, a number that gradually decreases until the being appears in their field of vision. Aya only has time to shout. Without hesitation, Ryder slides his motorcycle and fires. The problem is that he can't do anything to the being, as his blow is stopped and consumed by a kind of black hole that the being can control at will. Perplexed and overwhelmed, Ryder can't find the strength to escape. He is faced with the most imposing enemy he has ever seen, who has come specifically after him. It's the same creature from before who claimed to be able to find Mori. Ryder doesn't know this, of course, and believes that it is a bounty hunter sent after him for shooting inside the village. He is paralyzed by the thought that it could be someone so strong. Meanwhile, the enemy watches them. Upon seeing Mori, something clicks inside the enemy. He finds himself face to face with his target. The most unfortunate thing is that Aya warns Ryder that he only has a 16% chance of winning against such a strong opponent. Although Ryder asks Aya if she is sure, he acknowledges that she is never wrong and that his opponent is much stronger than he is. Therefore, to protect Mori, Ryder must avoid fighting one-on-one at all costs. With that in mind, he shoots first, creating a smokescreen that allows him to flee at full speed by activating his motorcycle's overdrive mode, which may seem contradictory. This increases the distance between them, but the plan isn't over yet. Once he is in a reasonably safe area, Ryder fires again. This time, he does not aim at the enemy but at the mountain behind him, causing an avalanche. He knows this won't stop his opponent, but it will buy him time. They set off once again, pushing the motorcycle to its limits to reach the bridge that leads directly to the city. Meanwhile, Mori is confused about whether he should be excited or scared. The ride is so extreme that Ryder asks Mori to hold on tight. The good news is that it works. They can see in the distance that they're getting closer to the famous bridge. Their happiness is short-lived, however, when they see the enemy calmly approaching from behind. Ryder shoots at him, but it's useless. His opponent stops the projectile with certain ease and continues running after them. At that moment, Ryder notices that the enemy doesn't seem to have any intention of attacking, but that doesn't ease his anxiety. He thinks everything will be fine once they reach the bridge. But when he looks back again, the enemy has caught up with them. He easily grabs Ryder by the neck, stops the motorcycle in its tracks, and prepares a black hole with which he will surely annihilate Ryder. Ryder tries to take advantage of the short distance to shoot, but it's useless. As the seconds pass, it becomes clear that this is the end for him. However, something changes when the enemy turns his gaze to Mori and realizes that Mori is not a drug dealer, but a little boy clinging to Ryder with all his strength, looking at Ryder with desperate eyes. The enemy is so surprised that he loosens his grip. Ryder takes this opportunity to throw himself off the motorcycle. Since they are already on the bridge, he lets himself fall toward the precipice. Clearly, the enemy is not familiar with this place, at least not as much as Ryder is. He stands and watches them for a few seconds, wanting to know what they will do. Then, to his surprise, a whale emerges from under the bridge into the sky. Ryder does not hesitate to cling to it. Meanwhile, Aya deactivates the motorcycle and returns to the group. The enemy watches Mori walk away slowly, wondering what to do next. After a while, the scene plunges into darkness. Someone can be heard speaking softly in the distance. Slowly, Ryder opens his eyes. He had fainted after spending time with the whales. When he regains consciousness, the first thing he does is ask about Mori. Aya congratulates him on his strategy because the whales appeared thanks to the avalanche he caused. He had it all coldly calculated. Still confused, Ryder asks where they are and begins to look around. He feels a great sense of relief when he sees a giant dome in the middle of the mountains. They have officially arrived in the city. He gently lays Mori on the ground. In a cute way, she says goodbye to the whales for helping them. Although Ryder was planning to go in already, Aya suggests they disguise themselves because they don't know if the news about the bounty on Ryder's head has reached the city. Surprisingly, he can distort his appearance in less than a second. The change isn't extreme, but it's enough that the little boy doesn't recognize him and starts looking around for the real Ryder. He takes the boy by the arm and tries to explain that it's him, but Aya insists the boy doesn't recognize him. She suggests another disguise as the three of them stand on top of each other to look like a giant with 4 arms. They look ridiculous, but this is how they present themselves at the city's entrance. A robot welcomes them, and Aya insists that they have come to request an audience with the Fa clan. The robot then asks them to present the symbol. Mori rummages through his treasures until he finds one of the letters. Once verified, the robot unfolds a giant, highly complex chart and asks them to identify the individual they wish to see. Of course, that's where the first problem arises. They have no idea, and the symbol could belong to either leaders or subordinates. Ryder and Aya grow nervous, fearing that choosing incorrectly could mean death. However, Mori looks closely at the chart, and a particular sphere catches his eye. To be sure, he takes out one of the blue flowers his godfather sent him. Curiously, the robot recognizes it instantly and claims to know exactly who it is. One of the names on the chart comes to life and turns into a portal they have never seen before. The robot senses their surprise and assures them that they will reach their destination no matter which direction they take. The kids slowly venture into the darkness until the void transforms into a beautiful sunny field. After a few steps, they arrive at an impressive mansion. While Ryder and Aya are surprised that all of this is within the city, Mori notices that the house resembles the orphanage. He gets so excited that he starts running toward the mansion, and the others follow him until they reach a giant fence. Ryder tells them to be careful because visiting someone without an invitation is punishable by death. He starts looking for a doorbell, but then he hears voices and sees long black hair, possibly his mother's, coming from one of the house's windows. He gets so excited that he climbs over the fence, runs across the garden, and sneaks in through one of the windows. Meanwhile, Ryder panics and frantically presses the switch, hoping someone will open the door and prevent him from ending up in jail. But it's too late. Little Mori has begun exploring the interior, running excitedly in search of answers. He sees the black hair he had seen from outside, excitedly enters a room, and encounters creatures that look like black and white birds. They are both surprised to see him and ask him who he is and how he got in. While the little boy panics, they wonder if they were expecting any guests that day. Everything changes when Mori perceives the familiar scent of flowers that has become a refuge for him. Even more excited, he follows the scent to a room across the hall. The creatures try to stop him, but he is faster. He runs with only one goal in mind: that big door where he will definitely find his mother. Suddenly, he stumbles upon a figure right where the scent is coming from. The problem is that when he looks up, he sees a dozen eyes belonging to a creature that looks nothing like a human. Paralyzed with fear, Mori can't help but remember how magical Rowena's reunion with her mother was. Disappointment is written all over his face as he realizes that this moment is nothing like he expected. At the same time, the creature senses Ryder's fear and tries to comfort him by stroking his head. Before it can touch him, however, Ryder begins to cry inconsolably. Ryder enters the house at that moment, frightened, but it is too late because Mori's crying scares the creature, which can be heard in every corner of the mansion. After a while, we see the child, still crying, curled up under a bed while Aya and Ryder try to convince him that he is safe. They are watched during this process by the birds from earlier, who turn out to be the servants of the mansion. Despite Ryder's efforts to calm the little boy, his attempts are useless. Upon leaving the room, Ryder encounters the creature, whose voice betrays pure concern. Ryder assures her that they need to give the child some time alone because he has never seen him cry like this before. The creature regrets not being what the little boy expected. She introduces herself as Miria, Mori's benefactor and leader of the Fa clan. Several hours pass, and at night, with his eyes completely swollen, Mori comes out from under the bed. He finds that both Ryder and Aya are sleeping peacefully. The little boy tries to gently wake them, which involves hitting Ryder in the face with all his might. However, Ryder continues to sleep. Starving, Mori has no choice but to explore the mansion on his own in search of food. Fortunately, he has an excellent sense of smell, and he makes his way through the hallways until he reaches the kitchen. There, he is spotted by Miria, who keeps her distance. Finally, Mori finds a bowl of fruit. He remembers that Ryder had offered him some earlier. He tries to grab some, but he is too short. With great effort, He climbs onto the counter until he can reach a piece. Suddenly, he hears a noise behind him. When he turns around, he meets the shy gaze of Miria, who is watching him from a distance. A couple of minutes earlier, we see Mori leaving a book he was reading in the library with a melancholy look on his face. The sound of small footsteps crossing the hallways catches his attention. He sees little Mori chasing the smell of food. Although somewhat hesitant, he decides to follow Mori to see what he is up to. That's how he saw Mori struggling to reach a piece of fruit. We return to the present just as their eyes meet with Mori. He was paralyzed, just as he was the first time they met. Miria looks much more sinister at night. In fact, the little boy's hair stands on end like a cat's, and he starts running around the room. This causes the poor girl to almost have a heart attack. She decides to run away so as not to make things worse. Once Mori is calmed down, we see a piece of fruit roll timidly toward him as an offering. He is still very nervous, but hunger gets the better of him and he runs after it. The fruit has been given to him by Miria, who remains on the other side of the door. Afraid of making things worse, she remembers how hard he worked to achieve the blow and throws him the fruit one by one so he can satisfy his hunger. Everything happens slowly, as if she were feeding a wild animal. When she hears him eat little by little, her eyes shine with an indescribable mixture of relief and adoration. Under the starlight, Mori feasts. After a while, Miria plucks up her courage and peeks in. She stays there, watching him eat peacefully and enjoying the moment. The next day, Mori wakes up on the kitchen floor to the excited murmurs of the workers who have begun to arrive and are seeing the famous human child in person. Of course, Mori is on guard and runs away until he meets Ryder, who asks if he slept well. Surprisingly, the little boy sticks to Ryder like glue, hugging him so affectionately that Ryder is completely paralyzed, not knowing what to do. Aya teases them, but the interesting part comes when she tells Mori what happened the night before when he was crying under the bed. As it turns out, Ryder had a meeting with Miria, who told him how worried she was about Mori. When Mori escaped, they thought she was going after her friend. However, they found new clues, and they never imagined she would make it there. She asked Ryder how she could thank him. Although he insisted it was nothing, she handed him a mysterious black box and asked him to open it. Ryder was amazed by its contents. Inside was a fragment of a star worth at least 60,000 coins. A fortune that would allow him to never work again. His eyes sparkled like never before, but the problem began when Miria thanked him for escorting Mori there, implying that his role in the little boy's life was over. Although that had been his goal when he met Mori, Ryder's smile disappeared as he nostalgically remembered all the moments they had shared, including the night he saw Mori sleeping peacefully. Without realizing it, Mori had carved out a permanent place in Ryder's heart. This went unnoticed by Aya. Without thinking twice, Ryder muttered that he wasn't ready yet. He insisted that Mori needed time to adjust to the place and that he wasn't ready to leave him. Of course, he played hard to get, pointing out that he was busy, but he could make time to stay until Mori felt comfortable with the change. Miria asked if it would be too much trouble, but Ryder insisted that the little boy had grown fond of him. The conversation continued normally until someone approached from behind. It was none other than the super broken enemy from last time. Understandably, Ryder cried out in horror, but Miria clarified that it was only Jer, one of her assistants. Jer apologized, acknowledging the previous confrontation and explaining that he had attacked Ryder because he thought Ryder was a kidnapper who had taken Mori for ransom. Now, back to the present, Aya tells the little boy everything, but he doesn't understand because Ryder covers his ears, not wanting to worry him with the details. He makes him understand, however, that they will be staying for a while and sends him to explore the house with Aya while he attends a meeting with Miria and all her staff members. She asks him to sit down and begins the meeting by explaining that they have not yet been able to contact Salam. Ryder does not know who Salam is, so he asks about him. The workers hint that Salam is related to the Arbiter. We discover that the Arbiter is the owner of Earth and has the power to dictate its laws. His arms hold the weight of the entire world, and his 3 legs create the perfect balance to support it. Miria explains that she can manipulate black holes because she is one of the 7 fingers of the Arbiter, like Salam. Salam rules the land from the mountain range to the Redan River, the location of Mori's refuge. This is important because when the boy disappeared, the orphanage did not appear to have any contact information for Salam, nor had they received detailed reports on the boy's condition. One of the employees insists that Salam is a busy man and that they will surely be able to contact him soon. However, whatever happens with Mori must also be discussed with Salam. Miria tells Ryder that he must stay until everything is resolved. However, the atmosphere becomes tense when the worker looks at Ryder suspiciously and asks if they can begin the real meeting. Afterwards, Ryder leaves, and another worker hands him an extremely small set of utensils. He looks at them confused until they explain that they are the special table where Mori made all night. Ryder says he isn't that short, but another worker takes him to see the bed, which is ridiculously large so that Mori can be safe even if he moves 40 times during the night. Clearly, everyone is excited about the little one. Meanwhile, Mori explores the house, scratching the walls, playing in the kitchen, and going through every corner. A explains what everything is. Things get interesting when they enter an office with a large desk covered in papers. Mori thinks that someone must have been working hard there. Mori is very curious and begins to rummage through things. He comes across a pattern that he recognizes very well: his cape. Aya explains that the office must belong to the person who designed the cape and the other treasures that Miria sent him. This is evident from the prototypes and wrappings scattered throughout the office. This changes things for Mori, who can only imagine Miria working hard in that office now. He is amazed until one of the house workers discovers them. The worker is glad to see Mori safe and sound and insists on how worried he was when he found out Mori was lost. Fortunately, unlike other times, Mori doesn't run away. Instead, he becomes shy as the worker explains that Miria is doing everything she can to understand him. Keeping this in mind, the little boy slowly peeks into the room where the meeting is taking place. He looks at Miria with a mixture of curiosity and amazement. However, when Miria turns around, he gets scared and runs away as usual. This makes her very sad. Ryder, who has been observing the situation, declares that it's time to improve things between them. Miria wants nothing more than that, but she thinks it's useless. So Ryder decides to create a multi-step plan to befriend Mori. The first tactic is to win him over with treats. Miria approaches him timidly with a tray of freshly baked cookies, but is surprised to find his workers surrounding him and offering all kinds of delicious things. The second tactic is to approach him while surrounded by his favorite things. Ryder covers him with all his favorite things, as if he were a Christmas tree. The problem is that when he sees Miria, he gets scared and panics when he realizes she has all his things. The third tactic is to introduce himself in a familiar environment. Ryder insists that Jer get on his motorcycle to make him feel more at home. However, that doesn't go well, since Ryder doesn't know how to drive and ends up crashing. The fourth tactic is the most complex. It involves Jer pretending to be the bad guy and attacking Miria. Then, Miria becomes his hero by saving him. However, when he appears before the little boy, he can't resist his charms. So, when Miria arrives on the scene, supposedly to save him, the poor boy does nothing but pamper Ryder with caresses. After this, they try different strategies, but nothing works. Mori sleeps peacefully at night until he dreams about the moment he was found by the soldiers, at which point he wakes up very distressed. Breathing heavily, with sweat covering his face, Mori looks around as if searching for someone to help him. But he is alone in the room. As if that weren't enough, lightning suddenly strikes, frightening Mori and causing him to run through the corridors at full speed in search of Ryder. The problem is that he is so focused on repairing his motorcycle that he doesn't realize the little boy needs him. Amidst the thunder and darkness, Mori makes his way through the mansion, his fear growing the whole time. Luckily, he sees a light on and enters the same office as before, where he finds Miria sitting asleep by the fireplace. Mori slowly crawls toward the warmth and notices that she spent the whole night reading books on improving relationships with children. The little boy doesn't understand a word they say, but he feels confident enough to approach her. When he sees her, he feels the same fear as before, but it doesn't stop him from sitting on her lap. At first, he is tense, but Miria, still asleep, hugs him, pressing him against her chest. He marvels at the sensation. He looks at her again and realizes that she is the same person he feared before. However, the warmth she conveys is genuine, so he presses his body against hers. Mesmerized once again by the steady beating of her heart, he stays like this for a while. Suddenly, a world of possibilities opens up before him, and he begins to remember everything she represents to him. It is at that precise moment, in her arms, that he feels for the first time what it means to have a mother. A little later, Miri opens her eyes, realizes she has fallen asleep, and panics when she sees Mori sleeping peacefully in her lap. She wonders, of course, how he got there. Instinctively, she thinks it would be best to call Ryder or Aya to take care of him. But at that moment, he curls up closer, clinging to her. Swallowing her fear of spoiling him, she lets herself be carried away by what she really wants. She hugs him, conveying all the love she has for him. The next morning, Ryder wakes up, and Aya congratulates him on working so hard last night, but also insists that he can take it easy from now on. They meet more staff members little by little, and are surprised to find that everyone is overly friendly, which they find strange. Then the mail arrives. Since everyone is busy, he offers to pick it up, but is surprised to find a Wemmel's faces, poster full of criminals face Isoloon. Ryder clearly panics. To make matters worse, Miria appears behind him at that very moment. He destroys the poster and goes with her, realizing he had forgotten there was a price on his head. The worst part is that, amid the crisis, he doesn't hear what Miria is saying. She asks him to get ready to accompany her to the city center to buy things for Mori. In short, the situation is complicated, but they arrive at a store where Miria often takes her clothes for adjustments. They have a special system that can bring any design to life. The only condition is that customers must come in person. Since finding suitable clothes for humans is difficult these days, Miria decided this was the best option for Mori. At that moment, the sales assistants approach the little boy. They tell him that they have heard a lot about him, and that Miss Miria gave them advice to make him feel at home. They say that they have prepared cookies, markers, and everything he likes. Curiously, it works because the poor boy approaches them like a moth to a flame. Ryder says it's not safe for anyone to control Mori with a couple of trinkets, and Miria agrees. She runs to the protagonist, who thinks he's lucky they were able to get there through a direct portal. saving him from being recognized on the street. Still, he knows he's not completely safe, so he asks Aya to scan the area for cameras. However, the encryption is so powerful that she can't provide an exact answer except to say that there are some security guards several meters from the main door. In short, he seems safe for now, but he can't help thinking about what to do next. Assuming it's best to keep a low profile, he decides that once they return to the mansion, he will flee without giving them time to ask questions. Of course, all negative thoughts leave his body the moment he sees Miria in her first outfit, an adorable bear costume. He can't help but scream. Miria has a hard time with it too, crying inconsolably over how beautiful it is. She gets creative with increasingly adorable costumes, such as one that resembles her own clothes. When Ryder sees it, he acknowledges that it's cute but comes up with something even better, dressing it in his own style. Even Aya joins in and selects an outfit, a strange one that she describes as perfect. Then, the sales assistants design more outfits that match each person's style. Everything goes normally until Ryder realizes something important. The bounty on his head isn't his fault, because he was fired illegally for protecting Mori. If he talks to Miria honestly, she'll surely understand. He decides to talk to her about it, but then remembers the kidnapper's words. How could someone as dangerous as you raise a human being? Although Ryder acted as if it didn't affect him, it obviously did, because that thought alone causes him to freeze and break out in a cold sweat at the idea of Miria taking him away from Mori when she realizes what kind of person he really is. He decides to play it cool and asks her what she meant by nice circle in her letters. She simply shows him a photo of the hill where he used to spend his afternoons alone, with Mori's small silhouette visible in the distance. Of course, the little boy was barely recognizable, but that was the first glimpse she had of him. One day, while organizing her paperwork, she noticed that Salim had sent her a letter. At first glance, it seemed ordinary, so she planned to read it later. However, when she opened it, she was transported directly to that peaceful hill. It turned out to be a video message, which she found strange at first, but that thought faded when she saw a small ball in the distance. It caught her attention immediately, of course, but everything changed when she saw it move and discovered that it was a child. The child was so beautiful and adorable that she was paralyzed on the spot. Out of nowhere, it was as if time had stopped. The child was so round that she had never seen anything like it. The first thought that crossed her mind was that he was a cute circle. Clearly, that's where the nickname comes from. Miria tells him that Mori is afraid of recording devices, which is why they recorded him from such a distance. The important thing is that, by the time he realized it, he had already filled out the paperwork to be his godfather and had started sending him gifts. Moved, Ryder acknowledges that his story with Mori began beautifully, very different from his own. The problem begins when the power goes out in the store, leaving them in the dark. One of the workers turns on a flashlight and points it directly at Mori. His expression changes from calm to absolute terror. Mori runs out of the store at full speed, as if his life depended on it. Everything happens so quickly that they don't have time to stop him. The worst part is that the little boy bumps into a huge guy, who overwhelms him with his mere presence. Despite the possibility of being identified as a criminal, Ryder doesn't hesitate to run toward the boy to protect him. He runs right past the security guard, causing the camera lens to slowly turn in his direction. He's about to be identified when Miria comes up behind him, putting her body between him and the camera at the perfect moment. Not only that, but she also activates her powers, enveloping the three of them in a kind of black hole and creating a slide of flowers to calm Mori and draw him toward them. Despite the initial distress, the scene is beautiful as Ryder, Miria, and Aya run toward the little boy. They ask him if he is okay and if he is injured. Mori begins to cry inconsolably because it is also overwhelming, but they hug him as if to confirm that everything will be all right. That night, the little boy sleeps clutching Miria's letters, which undoubtedly represent his safe place. The woman points out that she doesn't think the light was the only thing that caused Mori's reaction. Ryder agrees because he never had any problems with light from weapons or fire. She explains that she lit the house with candles because she had heard that Mori and his friend preferred it that way. Little by little, they connect the dots and discover that circular direct, sudden sources of light in his face bother him. Keeping this in mind, the three of them spend days thinking of a way to help Mori. One night, they gather in the main hall to watch a play. Mori doesn't understand anything at first, but everything starts to make sense when Aya begins narrating the story of the three little pigs with shadow puppets. It's something the little boy has never seen before. Impressed, Mori tries to get closer, but the workers ask him to stay calm. As the story progresses, we learn that it was all Miria's idea. She came up with the idea of using shadows to expose Mori to lights that would initially be mostly square in shape, but gradually become circular. The goal is for Mori to stop associating those particular lights with something bad and to start associating them with something positive. A magical night in every sense. The best part is that the strategy works. Mori is completely enchanted by the story until Aya realizes that the final pages of her script are covered with drawings. She has to improvise with the rest, and Ryder and Miria have no choice but to go along with it. The story becomes so absurd that they complain and say they can't continue, but Mori starts laughing out loud at that moment, which convinces them to continue all night. Meanwhile, we see a mysterious man confidently walking across a wide bridge between two giant statues. He states Summon Miria. After that, Mori wakes up shocked and drooling from a long night's sleep. Although the sunlight is still bright, he notices a difference that he is no longer alone. Aya cheerfully greets him, strokes his head, and congratulates him on waking up earlier than usual. The little boy spends a while stretching in bed until he notices a huge lump next to him. Curious, Mori starts sniffing until he pulls back the sheet and realizes it's Ryder. Mori hugs Ryder happily, still half asleep. Ryder asks for 10 more minutes. Mori is ready to start the day, so he leaves the room full of energy. He begins walking through the hallways and greets all the staff members until he reaches Miria, who is waiting for him with open arms. That day marks 1 month since they officially moved into the mansion. Mori spends the morning playing pranks, such as playing with flour and bothering the workers. Still, all it takes is for his stomach to growl for Aya to realize he's hungry. 3 of them rush into the room, imagining Mori sad and malnourished. They waste no time cooking a variety of food and feeding him until he's as round as a ball. Later, Jer realizes that Ryder is dirty and sets to work bathing him. However, the poor boy has the delicacy of a bounty hunter and rubs his face as if it were a dirty rag. Once Mori is clean and dry, he takes the initiative to find his mother Miria and looks at her with adoring eyes. They spend the rest of the afternoon together until Ryder comes in and asks them what they are doing. Miria tells her that they are working on Mori's writing. However, Aya points out that he hasn't written a single letter correctly. With loving eyes, Miria tries to explain that he has come quite close. Mori gets bored at that point, so he looks for a book to be read to him. Aya gets to work. She discovers that the book is about the phenomenon of separation, a topic she has never read about. Miria tries to explain it to Mori in simple terms, but the concept is too complex. When they turn around to see if Mori has understood, the little boy is already gone. After that, one of the workers finds Mori scribbling on the walls. Although he is too adorable for his own good, she decides to teach him some manners and make him clean up his mess. In the end, the wall is spotless, but Mori is on the verge of tears. Miria and Ryder take the opportunity to teach him that misbehaving is wrong and that the boogeyman is a Jer will scold him if he misbehaves. They are interrupted, however, by the arrival of the mail. Ryder runs off to get it, making sure there is no evidence of his wanted poster. Miria is no fool, though, and notices his strange attitude. She asks to speak to him in private. Ryder panics but follows her to her office. He starts sweating profusely, thinking he has been found out and that his days are numbered. He decides it would be best to be honest and tell her the truth. The problem is that just as he is about to do so, Miria beats him to it. She shows him strange black rocks with inscriptions on them. They turn out to be gems that open portals to the Arbiter's chamber. Ryder admits that he doesn't understand anything. She explains that she has contacted the referee, which makes him think of endless possibilities. He thinks that she may already know that he is dangerous and has reported him. He fears that they are about to put him in prison. Ryder thinks his life is over, but then Miria says something that changes everything. What do you think about joining the clan? Ryder's expression reveals the fatalistic scenarios he had imagined. Miria realizes this and tells him that she understands that the request is too sudden. She explains that she contacted the referee to express her desire for Mori to join the clan. Since there is no history of humans in it, they were called to a special meeting to clarify the situation. Although she has not yet been able to contact Salim, she is sure that he will take the news well. Once Mori is registered with the clan, the attempted kidnapping in the village will be considered a direct attack on the Fa. Therefore, it would be good for him to join as well. To discuss the bounty on his head. Ryder is surprised by that last part and asks how long she has known he is a wanted criminal. She insists she knew from the beginning but did not think it was important because she saw how close he is to Mori and did not want to be seen as a tyrant. She clarifies that the truth would eventually come out. Although it definitely won't be as exciting as his former life as a traveler, she would really like him to join them. She gives him some time to think, and he accepts. However, the first thing he sees when he leaves is Mori, who is sleeping soundly on the hallway floor. Ryder picks him up and carries him away, his expression unreadable to Aya. His assistant asks him what's wrong because he looks like he's received good news. However, Ryder plays hard to get, and the story moves straight to the day of the meeting with the Arbiter. They dress Mori in his finest clothes, and everyone gets ready and feels nervous. Mori himself seems somewhat concerned, which Ryder notices. To reassure him, Ryder takes the precious stone given to him by the lizard and divides it in 2. He explains that he won't be able to attend the meeting, but as long as Mori has this stone, they'll always be united. Ryder puts the stone around Mori's neck as a necklace and explains that they can always postpone the meeting if Mori doesn't feel ready. Mori insists on continuing, and after making sure he will be okay, he activates the portal. She goes first to pay her respects, and he must wait a few seconds, just as they practiced. Miria goes ahead, clinging to the necklace, and Mori crosses the door after a while. He finds himself on the imposing bridge they saw earlier. Meanwhile, Ryder and the others watch the situation unfold on a small screen. Miria reaches the end of the bridge and stands on an engraving that activates upon sensing her presence and spreads strong energy throughout the area. Then, the referee appears as a creature beyond human imagination. He greets her, and Ryder is paralyzed when he sees her on the screen. Miria then bows to him and signals to Jer, who tells Mori to walk straight toward her. The little boy agrees, and when he takes another step onto the platform, a circle lights up around him. He is not intimidated, however, and summoning all his courage begins to move forward with determination. The others are delighted to see that the shadow theater has worked. Step by step, Mori continues to advance, his gaze fixed on Miria. Suddenly, he feels something watching him. He can't help but turn around and encounter a giant silhouette. Its face is nothing more than an illuminated circle, like the one in his nightmares. It stares intently at him. At that moment, Mori trips and falls, causing Ryder and Miria to worry, and prompting Jer to almost run out and help him. Unfortunately, it is too late to avoid disaster. The man with the circle on his face approaches Mori, takes his arm, and asks if he is okay. Although the gesture seems genuine, Mori interprets it as a threat. The boy quickly turns to look at Miria, thinking he should go with her. However, his mind wanders to the man with the circle, who slowly begins to unleash the horrible memories he had with the soldiers. Seeing the distressed expression on Mori's face, Miria knows what is coming. She asks the man with the circle not to touch Mori, but it is useless. Mori goes into survival mode, and the first thing that occurs to him is to bite the man's arm. He doesn't understand anything, of course, and asks her to stop. However, this causes other guys to come over and see what's going on and Miria to bite even harder. Desperate, Miria tries to intervene with one of her black holes, but nothing works. Then, one of the giant statues, which are actually other beings, explains that she can't use her powers there. Ultimately, she has no choice but to run toward the little boy to calm him down. However, the referee gets there first and turns into an incorporeal energy that enters Mori's body. This causes Mori to lose consciousness as the referee lifts him up. The referee tells Miria that he hopes she has a very good explanation for what just happened. We then fast forward several hours. Ryder insists it's absurd to accuse the little boy of assault. She explains they see Mori as unstable, so they've decided to keep him under the arbitrator's jurisdiction. Of course, Ryder cannot accept that, so Aya asks him to calm down. Miria wonders what the Salam search unit was doing there. It turns out that Mori did not exaggerate when he linked them to the soldiers in his memories, because those are precisely the soldiers who caught him. Recalling what happened after the arbitrator caught Mori, we see that Miria was interrogated by three beings who insisted it made no sense that a child under Salam's jurisdiction could have escaped and gotten so far. Ryder didn't understand, so they explained that the three legs of the referee believed Miria was desperate enough to take control of the human that she sent someone to kidnap him. Miria tried to explain that he had fled Salam's territory on his own and that he might not have been detected because of the cloak she had made for him out of loader fabric. It was not part of any master plan, though. She had simply used that material because she had read that human children are extremely weak and wanted to protect him. She also insisted that she did not know Salam's security system had flaws and that the only reason Mori arrived in the city safely was because he received outside help. The problem was that, when asked who that person was, Miria knew she couldn't tell them it was Ryder. The situation became tense, and rather than helping, it could put her life at risk. She said the person who helped Mori took his reward and left as soon as he brought Mori back safely. However, they interpreted this as her having no evidence. To make matters worse, they pointed out that they have a record of Mori in the city from when he was almost crushed by a civilian while running out of the store. Both could have been seriously injured. Ultimately, Miria apologized for her negligence. They concluded that the city was not a suitable place for a human. The two giant beings, who were actually her arms, insisted on sending Mori to a restrictive facility. Miria insisted that it would be too emotionally shocking for Mori, so even though he can't communicate like everyone else, they had to let him talk to Mori about it and give him a chance to prove that he could handle it. In the end, the arms said they would take it into consideration and Miria left. However, just as she was about to leave, the referee interrupted her and showed her Mori. She innocently hugged him. The problem was that it was nothing more than illusion that gradually aged until it died. The referee explained to her that time passes differently for humans and asked if she was sure she could bear such an ending. Several days have passed, and in the present we see that everyone is concerned about Miria, who has not eaten properly all week. Ryder wonders if he could speak on her behalf at the next meeting with the referee, but Jer insists that this would only make things worse. His reputation is not the best, and if they had trouble believing Miria, nothing he says will make a difference. In short, they must think carefully about everything they do from now on because Aya's existence is illegal. With one false move, they could take her away. Ryder did not take that warning well, of course, insisting that he created Aya and that she belongs to him. However, it was Aya who calmed him down, pointing out that it was a possibility they could not rule out. The tension in the room is so thick that Ryder decides to go for a walk and think about his last moments with Mori before everything went to hell. Just then, the mail arrives, so he goes to pick it up. He is thrilled to see that Miria's request to visit Mori in the restricted facility has been approved. This changes his mood, so he leaves the paperwork he was reading behind. On the day of the visit, all the staff members give Mori different baskets filled with snacks, toys, and his favorite possessions. After thanking them, she and Ryder look at each other with determination and set off for the facility. There, they are greeted by 2 guards who guide them through the building. During the journey, Miria can't help but look at one of Mori's drawings with concern. In it, the boy had drawn Ryder, Aya, and her protecting him, with the drawing placed just above a photo of Ryder on a heel. Ryder scolded him when he realized what he had done, but the photo itself reminds Miria that she must stay strong for all of them. The problem begins when Ryder enters the room where Mori is being kept and discovers the little boy asleep on the floor with tubes connected to his body. It's a heartbreaking sight, and one of the workers explains that they had no choice but to feed him externally because he had refused to eat since the day he arrived. They even confiscated his cape before he entered because it did not pass the authorization protocols. The man did not hesitate to point out that it's a violent little thing, so they decided to keep him sedated and prohibit all physical contact to ensure the safety of the staff. He says that when Mori wakes up, they will be able to talk for a while. However, the situation is too much for Miria. She is speechless when she sees the hell her son has been living in all this time. She tries to explain that she brought his favorite foods and toys to give to him. However, as time passes, she begins to remember the vision shown to her by the referee, the horrible image of Mori aging and dying in her arms. Ultimately, the situation becomes too much for her, and she simply apologizes and leaves. The worst thing is that, at that moment, Mori begins to wake up, senses her scent, and asks for her. Unfortunately, she is no longer there by then, but that does not stop Mori from crawling toward the glass separating them and calling her name over and over again. He even starts banging on the glass as if he could reach her. It's impossible, though, so he begins to cry inconsolably. His stress levels skyrocket, and the staff administer a powerful sedative, gradually dulling his gaze until his eyes stop shining, and the little boy falls asleep. Late at night in the mansion, everyone is concerned about Miria. She has been locked in her office since visiting Mori, and they have never seen her like this. The workers whisper that one wrong move could end in disaster. However, Ryder is tired of taking a passive stance. Against the warnings of others, he decides to enter the office and insists that they need to talk. Miria doesn't even turn to look at him when he enters. She insists that she would like to be alone. However, Ryder sees a letter on the desk. Upon reading it, he is stunned to discover that it is a document of abandonment. Little by little, everything begins to make sense. He asks her if the letter is for Mori and points out that it must be a bad joke since he just went to see Mori. Miria doesn't respond, so he presses her further, asking if the little boy was just a toy for temporary amusement. That's the last straw. Miria activates her powers, shattering everything around her. She stares at Ryder with a dozen cold eyes and warns him not to provoke her any further. Despite everything, he insists that he is only trying to decide what is best for Mori. Ryder plucks up his courage and asks Miria if she really thinks giving up is the best thing to do. She finally breaks down and tells him what she saw during her visit, how she found Mori lying on the floor asleep from crying and starving so much. Through tears, she explains how horrible it was to see him in that situation. Little by little, her feelings become overwhelming, and the entire room turns into an infinite void filled with the little boy's favorite things. Miria explains that it all happened because of her greed. Even though she knew humans had a short life expectancy, she couldn't stop wanting Mori. She took advantage of Salam's irresponsibility to keep him close instead of returning him to the orphanage. She even wanted to make him part of her family. Ultimately, her selfishness stemmed from her love for Mori, which hurt so much that she was sure she could make him happy. However, she ended up causing all this suffering. All she wants is to be by his side. However, if the situation drags on, Mori could weaken, get sick, or even die, all because of her selfishness. Miria tells herself that letting him go is the best thing to do until Ryder shakes her hard, asking her to stop this madness because nothing she says makes sense. She looks up in surprise, but Ryder insists that Mori has always been too small and delicate for his own good. When Ryder first saw Mori in the desert, he wondered how he had managed to survive. This may sound like Ryder supports Miria's logic, but he clarifies that he doesn't. Even though Mori was small and weak, he decided to embark on this adventure and risk his life in the process because he wanted to be with her. Furthermore, no matter how difficult things got, the determination and hope in his eyes every time he read her letters made it clear that he never regretted that decision. If she gives up, she'll be ignoring all the effort he put into getting there. In the silence, Miria confesses that she received a letter that morning offering her the chance to find a good human family for Mori. She insists that a human child needs a human mother. At that moment, Ryder interrupts her and tells her that none of that matters because they can do it. They can be Mori's mother. At that moment, it's as if something clicks in Miria's mind. Although she is still confused, we see Aya and Ryder leading a meeting with the rest of the staff. They explain that their plan's goal is to prove to the Arbiter that they can be a better mother for Mori than anyone they could find. The question is how they should excel, so Aya explains humans are divided into sexes and that they have offspring when they reproduce. The most common and ideal pattern is for two adults to unite through a contract called marriage and raise children together. In short, they need a duo that they will call a couple, or parents. After thinking about it for a few seconds, Ryder turns to Miria and says seriously, "We are now a couple." Miria blushes and says the word sounds nice. Jer gets jealous, but the fun begins when Aya asks who will be the dad and who will be the mom. They respond that they want to be the mothers. Although they don't have much information, Aya says that shouldn't be a problem. They wonder if they should emphasize that they are strong and wealthy because humans tend to like those qualities, but Aya rebukes Ryder, insisting that he isn't wealthy either. However, one of the workers insists that they should prove they care most about Mori. Although this sounds difficult, they cling to the data. One worker has hugged the little boy more than 600 times, and another has let him step on him at least 400 times. One of the girls becomes sad because she has only scalded Mori. She starts crying and says that she should have let him draw on the walls as much as he wanted. At that moment, one of the workers proudly points out that he cooked delicious meals for Mori, who never left a bite behind. Then Miria confesses that she hasn't eaten in days, and she starts crying too. Meanwhile, the others try to gather data on humans, but conclude that they don't have enough information to make a credible argument. The general mood declines, but Miria insists that they can't give up. She says that she will meet with Salam, implying that she will go see him even if he doesn't answer her calls. Jer is alarmed and insists it is too dangerous, but Miria points out that Salam knows about humans, and Mori was found within his domain. Therefore, if anyone knows anything about the little boy's past, it is Salam. The only problem is that Salam is in his playground, a space he created before the one for humans. There, he devoted himself to gathering things he likes. Ryder imagines his own fantasy with Mori, Aya, and a beach, but Jer clarifies that it's not that simple. If you stay too long in a space created by someone else's power without the owner's permission, you could go crazy. They don't even know where Salam is. Nevertheless, Miria insists that she must go. Ryder says they must do it quickly and offers to accompany her since they are the mothers after all. Jer insists on joining them, so Miria proposes sharing some of her power with him to save time. She trusts Ryder and Aya to lead the way. They begin preparations, and Miria orders a star fragment that will take them wherever they want to go. She breaks it in her hands and explains that since they don't have an invitation, it won't be very accurate. In other words, they must stay close. She activates the portal, which takes them straight to a cold water beach. They emerge completely soaked but ready to begin this new quest. They begin advancing step by step along the shore, crossing a wide meadow and several plains. They even cross a large cliff, from which they can see a flock of manta rays flying through the sky. The path includes swamps and otherworldly forests, which they traverse in search of clues. Sometimes, however, they arrive at a place only to realize that they have taken the wrong route. At one point, Ryder comes face to face with a creature that leaves him paralyzed and trembling. He has to take refuge behind Miria for protection. They spend the whole day exploring the area without much success. At nightfall, they meet up with Jer, who had been exploring on his own. He tells them straight away that he hasn't found anything either. With no other option, they resign themselves to building a fire and camping out in order to regain their strength. Miria admits that she hasn't moved that much in a century, but her gaze makes it clear that she is ready for this and more. At least the scenery is beautiful. The three of them are fascinated by the sky and say that Mori would have loved these views. The dwarves' thoughts also remind them of something that only Aya dares to say out loud. They are sure that the little one would have tried to eat every stone and branch along the way, and they would have spent the whole day stopping him, prevent him from endangering his life. They would also have had to carry at least 67% more luggage, which is ironic because it's hard to fathom how such a tiny creature could require so many things. As the conversation turns to Mori, Jer admits that he didn't initially understand her because he had always viewed humans as dull. However, after spending more time with her, he has developed a better understanding of Mori's spirit. When he agreed to help her, he told himself that he didn't need to understand her motives to do his job. As he spent more time with Mori, who could be adorable even after being scalded for eating dirt, he realized not only that human babies are unhealthy, wet, warm, and unable to communicate like normal people, but also that he found himself caressing Mori affectionately and feeling an intense desire to protect him and never see the anguish-faced look on his face again that he had when they first met. After that confession, Miria, Aya, and Ryder remain silent, but their expressions show that they understand perfectly. The next day, the adventure continues along a ledge. Ryder can only be saved from it thanks to Miria. They reach a cave full of skeletons that are not just lying around, they remain bowed as if praying to a savior god. Curiously, that is not their destination, but they continue until they reach a giant temple. Amidst the vastness, they begin to hear noises, and behind a column, they come across two baby bears. Intrigued, Ryder asks if they are solemn. Miria clarifies that they are not. However, the moment Ryder tries to approach the animal, a strange yellow energy emerges and immobilizes his arm in a matter of seconds. What catches their attention most is a presence on the other side of the room. Initially, there is nothing there, but then one of Salam's security guards appears. The peculiar thing about him is that the circle around his face is an intense blood red color. Without wasting any time, Jer lunges at the guard, but he is stopped by the same yellow energy that immobilized Ryder's arm. The guard dodges Jer completely and advances toward Miria in a matter of seconds. Impressively, she does not seem concerned, nor does she move from her place. She automatically summons one of her black holes, which encloses the guard and confines him in a small sphere that fits in the palm of her hand. However, this display of force causes the guard to recognize her. From the sphere, he asks Miria. She calls him by his name, Nafal. Seeing that they pose no threat, the guard is released, and they begin to catch up like old friends. They insist that Salam would have been happy to see her, making it clear that their leader is not present. As expected, this discourages them from continuing the conversation. Ryder directly asks if Salam is not there, which confuses Nafal. They fill him in, and he apologizes for the situation with Mori. He points out that he had no idea about her escape or her current custody in the restricted facility. Regarding the latest incident, he understands the little boy's reaction. Although they captured him and put him in the orphanage as part of a rescue mission, it's logical that he's traumatized and sees them as a threat. The interesting part begins when Miria puts the pieces together regarding Salam's absence and asks Nofal directly if Salam has left. This would explain why his men were present at the last hearing and how Mori managed to escape undetected. The lauder cloth cape offers protection, but should not be enough to circumvent strong security systems. The only option he can think of is that Salam is in the process of separation and is sheltered within the protection of the Arbiter. Impressed by his deduction, Nafal admits that Salam is right. His closest men went with him to pay their respects while Salam remained in charge of the playground. Nofal also explains that his boss is a bit unstable. Even though Salam should have seen the split coming, and even though Nafal himself warned Salam that it could happen at any moment, Salam didn't pay attention and the whole process took him by surprise. In short, his domain has been in complete chaos for the past 6 months, so they can't meet with him now. Spirits are low, of course, and a silence falls. Nafal breaks the silence by offering them a tour of the place, so that they won't feel like they came all this way for nothing. Miria tries to refuse, but Nofal insists and tells them many interesting facts about the place. He even takes the opportunity to show them Salam's collection of miniatures based on his favorite creatures. Things get interesting when Nafal tells them that they have an entire wing full of files on humans. Ryder interrupts him, insisting that Nofal should have started there and that they want to read everything he has. Nofal then guides them to the wing and insists that Salam would be happy to see their enthusiasm. Salam loves sharing interesting facts, but generally no one is interested in listening to him, not even the Arbiter. Nafal points out that they don't have a preference. Salam just always felt sorry for humans because, by design, they have a rigid and unforgivable destiny of destruction. Every sin committed by the body is tied to the soul. This is why they have taken it upon themselves to watch over human children, so they won't follow that same path. It's difficult, but they are determined to keep the mission alive. When they reach a large door, they open it, and a voice warns them that what they are about to see will be hard to take in. Still, Ryder and Miria look at each other, hesitate for a second, then enter. They find themselves in pure darkness with a large circle of pure cosmos in the center. Ryder doesn't understand what they're seeing, but Miria explains it's all the data and information about things that Salam has ever shown interest in. Since humans are also animals, the information probably starts at the cellular level. Nafal clarifies that they haven't organized it in thousands of years. The goal will be to find only the records about humans, specifically everything related to mothers. It seems like an impossible task until Aya sees an object in the distance. While the others complain that they won't finish in time for the trial in 2 days, she looks wistfully at Ryder and devises a plan. To understand it, however, we must go back to the moment of its creation, when little Aya opened her eyes for the first time and found Ryder smiling and welcoming her. He told her his name. In the present, Aya asks how much energy is available on site and explains that she wants to use it with the amplifier. Nafal gives her permission but warns that they don't have any devices with which to use it. Little by little, Ryder realizes what Aya is planning. She asks him to let her try to classify the data, but he immediately refuses, reminding her that she is not in the best condition. Although Aya acknowledges that there is only a 12% chance she can endure the process for more than 10 minutes in her current state, meaning there is an 88% chance of damage, she still wants to do it. Ryder asks her to listen to herself and insists that it's crazy. Aya stops him in his tracks and asks him, "What did you create me?" He doesn't understand what she's getting at, so she explains that if he had created her purely for convenience, he wouldn't have given her a name, the ability to smile, or the capacity to feel. After saying this, she asks again, "Why did you want to create me?" He falls silent, thinking of the endless lonely afternoons he endured before she came into his life. Seeing that he won't answer, Aya confesses that she trusts his repair skills. Even though he won't classify all the data, he will surely be useful. She activates the amplifier and says, "I'll leave the rest to you." Of course, starting this process sets off a barrage of alarms warning her that she won't be able to handle it. Nevertheless, she presses on, asking them to make sure to bring Mori to her. Thus begins the extraction. Despite all the risks, Aya stands firm as she reads the information while Miria speeds up the process. Meanwhile, Ryder watches the situation, completely paralyzed. He tries to remain calm as thousands of pieces of data appear in front of them. At one point in the process, An alarm notifies them that Aya will not be able to get through it. Ryder steps forward and yells that it's time to stop, but Aya responds that he shouldn't interrupt her and that she can do this. Little by little, the system begins to overheat. However, all Aya can think about are the beautiful moments she experienced with the little boy and the emotions she supposedly can't experience as an AI. Yet they've left a mark on her. Focusing on holding on as long as possible, she says she is doing this because she is also Mori's mother. Her words are interrupted, though, by a short circuit in the system that paralyzes her and makes it clear that it's time to stop. Ryder tries to intervene, reaching into the amplifier despite the danger to control the enormous amount of energy. Miria helps him by using her other hand to absorb the energy through a black hole, preventing them from burning alive. Thanks to this, Ryder manages to free Aya. However, her condition is so serious that she can only utter a couple of unintelligible words before closing her eyes forever. Amid the commotion, Ryder tries to be strong. He doesn't hesitate to act when Miria confirms they have all the data. His only words are, "Let's go back." The next scene shows them back at the mansion, where Ryder spent the night repairing Aya. The rest of the staff helps him, but the interesting part comes when Aya's data shows him a hologram of the motorcycle, making him quite nervous as if it were a sign of things to come. He is so focused on it that he works non-stop the rest of the day. It is not until the following night that he leaves his office and runs into Miria. She has also spent the entire day reading the countless data they collected. When she sees him, she asks how things are going with Aya. He thanks her for her help and explains that he has been able to rebuild her. However, he is concerned about her memory. She may not remember anything when they turn her on. Miria looks guilty at that moment, but Ryder asks her not to worry because he trusts Mori. We then see that the other workers are asleep, exhausted from so much research. Ryder takes the opportunity to ask her what they discovered. What is a mother? Ryder asks. It's more than a role in raising a person, it's a symbol, Miria replies. It's complicated. Miria continues. The more I read about mothers, the more I feel that even if you brought together everyone in the mansion, they still wouldn't be able to fulfill what is expected of a mother. People in the past even used to describe mothers as stars. It's a role that Miria is increasingly unsure she can fulfill. They tried to find information about Mori's birth mother, but found nothing. Ryder suggested that perhaps she had disappeared or decided that she could not be with him, because very few people in this world are prepared to take on such an important role. Then, among the data, they see a photo of a boy with his puppy. Miria confesses that the stuffed animal she made for Mori, which looks like some kind of monster, was actually meant to be a puppy. Of course, the stuffed animal doesn't look like a puppy at all. Miria explains that at the time, she had read that puppies were the gift human children wanted most. However, since puppies became extinct along with humans, she had no idea what they looked like and had to improvise. After seeing all this information, Miria regrets that she could only give Mori a fake puppy, which is just what you would expect from a fake mother. However, Ryder stops her and insists that Mori liked it, fake or not. Miria thinks about how happy the boy is every time he plays with the stuffed animal and decides to be honest. She confesses that she used to be very jealous of him. Ryder is surprised, but Miria explains that Ryder and Mori have shared many moments together, creating a close relationship that Miria could only dream of having. That's why when she first met him, she wanted to send him away. That's also why she didn't hesitate to give him a generous reward. Deep down, she knew Mori wouldn't like it, so she let him decide to leave on his own. However, he insisted on staying, showing unparalleled commitment. With that said, Miria asks Ryder if he isn't pathetic. Ryder thinks back to the time she told him how she met Mori. Such a magical beginning, the complete opposite of his own. He laughs out loud before admitting that deep down, they are more alike than it seems. He admits that he used to envy her, too, and tells her the truth about how he met Mori. They spend a couple more hours talking until Miria returns to work. Ryder looks at her with a mixture of determination and sadness. Then he remembers his last moments with Aya. She told him that, even with all the information they had gathered, their chances of winning the trial were only 36%. She asked him if he knew how to get the motorcycle out without her help, implying that he would need it to guarantee victory. With that in mind, Ryder springs into action, and the scene shifts to the restricted facility where Mori's belongings are being disinfected by a special camera. The little boy curls up sadly in a corner. The interesting part comes when we see the necklace Ryder gave Mori begin to move. Remember, the gem has the ability to naturally rearm itself, so it is gradually drawn toward one of the windows. Mori notices this and begins to follow the necklace. He comes face to face with Ryder, whose mere presence makes the little boy's eyes shine with joy and brings a tear to his eye. Then, as if to touch him, he reaches out his arm. Mori hugs him with such joy that we can practically hear his heart breaking into 1,000 pieces. He makes sure to keep his composure, though, and when he sees the little boy's tears, he asks him not to cry because he has come to save him. The most beautiful thing is that Ryder assures him that he will be more than just his mother. He will also be his father, grandfather, grandmother, brother, sister, uncle, and aunt. For him, Ryder is willing to be whatever he needs. Recalling their days of adventure together, Ryder insists that when Aya wakes up, they will escape and the three of them will take a trip together. However, as he reminisces, Ryder feels the overwhelming loneliness he experienced before they came into his life. He realizes that this is not the life he wants for Mori. That's why he tells Mori that they have to do things differently. He can't make Mori live like him, so he's completely honest. He explains that there are people who want to take Mori away. Although they're doing everything they can to stay together, the situation isn't promising. Currently, the only thing that can change the situation is for Mori to express his wishes. At least that's what Aya recommended, so Mori needs his help to convey his feelings to the arbitrator. Luckily, Mori understands perfectly. Searching through his things, he discovers the answer and starts humming like crazy, asking for the only thing he needs to do his part. Ryder gives Mori a notebook and some crayons, and he begins to draw. He remembers surviving in the wild, warm afternoons with friends at the orphanage, kind looks from everyone at Miria's house, and Aya, an AI who made him feel understood. He remembers Miria's hugs and waking up next to Ryder. Stroke after stroke and crayon after crayon, Mori puts all his effort into telling his story through his drawings. His mind takes him straight back to the day Miria showed him cards with an object on one side and how to write its name on the other. At the time, he couldn't write even the simplest things, but neither Miria nor Aya showed any frustration. Instead, they encouraged him to do his best. There is one specific word, however, that he simply cannot remember. He tries to recall it and visualizes a card with an elderly person hugging a baby. When he turns it over, it says, "Mum." Even though it's difficult, Mori tries to convey his feelings. He continues for a long time until one of the surveillance captures the rope Ryder is hanging from. From the security center, one worker assumes it's someone cleaning the windows. However, his colleague informs him that no reports have been filed regarding this, and only someone with problems would clean without a safety lift. They end up discovering Ryder almost at the same time Mori passes him his statement through the bars. They activate the security protocol against intruders. In the morning, Miria prepares to attend the trial. Before crossing the portal, she asks about Ryder, but everyone says they haven't seen him. Under other circumstances, this would have discouraged her, but she is sure that Ryder will arrive on time because of the conversation from the day before, so she goes ahead and presents herself before the arbitrator. He greets her automatically, and they begin the trial. The first thing they do is ask her if she intends to continue with her whim. She insists that, as long as Mori does not express his desire to abandon her, she will not give up. The legs respond that Mori's intelligence is so low that he hasn't even learned his species' language properly. Miria counters that she contacted the orphanage where Mori stayed, and they agreed to help educate him in human society. Rather than being impressed, they remind her that the orphanage is under the jurisdiction of Salim, who is indisposed and cannot authorize such processes. Miria says she knows this, however, and that the arbitrator is currently performing his duties. She asks the arbitrator directly for help, insisting that they can teach Mori everything about human society and a family environment at their home. In response, the legs remind her that she was careless with Mori in the past. To reinforce her point, Miria shows them the orphanage administrators who strive every day to care for the children yet still make mistakes because caring for living beings is not easy. She takes the opportunity to remind them of their past mistakes, which helps them understand her point of view. They ask her how she will prove that she can fulfill her protective duties. Miria is prepared and gives them a folder containing statements from each of her team members. The reasons why they are suitable for taking care of Mori vary, but include things like, "I will love him more than anyone else, I won't let him go hungry, I am firm, and I can hug him all day long." Miria acknowledges that caring for a child is complex and important, but she understands she isn't alone and can share the burden with her supporters. Unfortunately, the arms interpret this as planning to use Mori as a toy. They believe the relationship would be unequal and hierarchical with so many people involved. They remind her that the thirst for power is dangerous, as they know from experience with humans. Miria responds that the power granted to her by the arbiter has always protected her. However, if they believe it could endanger Mori, she is willing to relinquish it. The legs interpret this as an offense, but the arms directly ask her if she thinks she can be the perfect mother. She responds honestly, "I don't know." Despite all her research, she has not found an answer to what it means to be a mother. She may never know, even on the day Mori leaves her side. What she does know is that although everyone has a different definition of motherhood, only Mori can decide who her mother is. She would like them to give her the opportunity to accompany Mori on that journey. With tears in her eyes, Miria begs them to give her a chance. The legs insist to the referee that Mori's claim that she came voluntarily has not yet been proven. Suddenly, the argument is interrupted by screams and a voice that Miria recognizes coming from outside. She remembers giving Ryder a gem to open a portal to that place if necessary. Ryder enters on his motorcycle at full speed, dragging the security guards behind him, ready to expose the truth. Unfortunately, Ryder doesn't make it to the platform. He is captured by the referee and transported to a place of utter darkness. The peace is short-lived, however, as the referee attacks Ryder within seconds, causing him to bleed from the mouth and fall completely at the referee's mercy. At that moment, the arms and legs identify him as fugitive 250-01 or 6 and note that he must be crazy to try entering the arbiter's chamber like that. Ryder scoffs, saying that it's impossible to raise a child with a completely healthy mind, for starters. As expected, this statement catches the Arbiter's attention. Ryder continues, saying that if they really want to know what Mori thinks about it, here it is, a letter written by Mori himself. The referee slowly receives the drawings while Ryder admits that he knows he is a bad person and a horrible being. However, Mori loves him, and he is capable of doing anything for Mori. Despite being a criminal, the Arbiter listens carefully to Ryder. Moments later, he unleashes his power on everyone present and declares that the time has come to pass sentence. Meanwhile, Mori bangs on the glass, hoping for a chance to escape. His efforts seem futile, but his determination drives him to try once more until he is suddenly surrounded by the Arbiter's aura and begins to fall into the void. Out of nowhere, he ends up in the hands of this impressive being. The being removes Mori's feeding tubes, dresses him in his favorite clothes, and says, "Young star, until your end comes, you can live the life you want." Mori understands the meaning of these words. He hugs the referee tenderly and admits that Miria was right. It's a beautiful, enchanting circle. Regardless of what it means to be a mother, no love is more complete than the one between them. He gives her permission to go home. With that said, Mori finds himself back on the wide hill from the beginning. This hill used to be a tangible representation of his loneliness. But when he turns around, he is no longer alone. Instead, he has a whole family waiting for him. Smiling, Mori runs toward them, and we catch a glimpse of his letter. It's a summary of his journey, being raised among animals, being captured by soldiers, making his first friend at the orphanage, receiving gifts, embarking on his journey, meeting Ryder, and arriving at Miria's house. When the arms ask how they should record this evidence, Mori replies without hesitation, "MYWA to CEMYMOTR." In addition to narrating his journey, Mori has drawn each member of his peculiar family. They are all surrounded by a single phrase, "Mum." This story ends not only with a hug but also with the little boy's first words, "Mum," spoken with the confidence of someone who knows he will never be alone again. The best part is that on the other side of the hill, Aya finally wakes up with her memory intact and a clear statement, "TTE Lidia PL Eve R AF to R."